Hi TYB, welcome to the book of Hebrews. Now, this is an incredible book. You are in this book for 3 parts, whatever that looks like for you, if you're doing your parts weekly or fortnightly or monthly. But we've got 3 videos, 3 dives, 3 deep dives, because Hebrews is really a very meaty and weighty book. It's kind of like Romans. When you sit in Hebrews, there's so much to jump into. You will spend time just studying. I want you to highlight, I want you to notice the language, but I really want you to meditate. Remember we said in the beginning, and this is a quote from my boss, Mark Kelsey, it says, read the books, study the chapters, meditate on the verses. So I want you to read the book of Hebrews, study the chapters, which we're going to do, but really meditate on some of these verses that are really going to jump out at you. So in this snapshot, I'm going to go through author, and we're going to jump into that in this part. This book is incredible. I mean, you know Hebrews 11, you know the faith chapter, you know how he talks about faith. And let me read you Hebrews 11 just to start off. I love this. Now, faith is this confidence in what we hope for, an assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. And then he goes through by faith Abel, by faith Enoch, by faith Noah. Now, this is the book. But let me tell you that what we do with this book is sometimes we just jump straight into the faith, but there's so much more to Hebrews, and I want you to jump and sit in it. So let's get started. Hebrews, when you first read this book, most people assign this book to Paul because of the order of the books. You know, it's in kind of the Pauline texts, but it's at the end of the Pauline text. It's at the very end, and the reason that's at the end is because we don't know who wrote Hebrews. We don't know who this author is. There's so much scholarly debate about this. You know, some people are confident it's Paul, and that's great. And we're going to go through in the dive this week some people who are confident maybe that it's Apollos, maybe it's Barnabas, maybe it's a female that she couldn't assign her name to it. I don't know about the female thing as much as I would love to say that, because would she be as educated as this man is? And in the dive, we're going to go through who is this author. The reason there's so much debate about it is, have a look at the beginning of Hebrews. What's your 1:1? It says, in the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways, but in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things. What? Hang on a second. Where's the introduction? Where's, hi, I, Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, and Timothy to the church in Colossians or Colossae, to grace and peace. There's no introduction. So we're going to go through in the dive this week that some people say that maybe the first part was lost, or maybe this isn't Paul. Maybe this isn't because he's not starting the same way. Maybe this is another person, very well versed in Old Testament, very smart. The Greek is incredible. So when you study Greek, I hope you will study Greek. When you get to your exam, if it's Hebrews, cry. No, it's okay. Don't cry. It just means that this is like classical Greek. It's a very well written document. So let's jump in to have a look at this person is writing to the Hebrews. So who are the Hebrews? It's a general term. It's like saying the Australians. Who's he writing to? Now, this author is well versed in Old Testament, and he's Jewish, because you can hear his language. He says we, and he kind of brings himself into the people of the Jews. So he's definitely Jewish, and he communicates very well. He's very smart, very good orator, very good debater. You can hear this systematic way that he writes. If he was doing his masters, he would ace it. It's this incredible writing style. Now it's to the Hebrews, meaning it's he's writing to the Jewish believers, and he's saying, don't go back. Don't go back. What's happening is they're struggling to keep their faith as Christians. They're struggling to walk away from everything that this is now, you got to remember, sometimes when preachers and teachers teach today, they teach the understanding of the Jews as a religion. But you've got to remember, the Jews aren't a religion, they're a nation. They are the Israelites. Okay, so when you are talking to a Jewish person about their beliefs and their Torah and territory and the lands and Moses and Abraham and all of these beautiful things in the Old Testament, you're not just talking about a religion that they could switch off. You are talking about their national pride. You are talking about a nation. You are talking about their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. You are talking about their beliefs that make them Jews, that make them Israelite. Does that make sense? So when this author of Hebrews is talking to them, he's saying, look, I know that you have previously been very involved in the prophets and Moses and Joshua and Aaron, and he systematically goes through these things. He says, but Christ. He said, you now don't turn back. Don't turn back to what your comfort zone is. Stay in Christ. Because they've previously experienced under the law, all of this stuff, and he's saying Christ is better, and he says it over and over and over again. Christ is superior. Christ is better. You know, I'm going to write in my dive next week about this, understanding it's kind of like this argument in a playground. My dad's better than your dad, and he systematically goes through and says Christ is better. They bring up Moses. No, he's greater than Moses. They bring up the prophet. No, he's greater than angels. Greater than the angels, and he goes through. Now, these Jewish believers, apparently they expected Christ to come back really soon, and they were discouraged because he hadn't. And the delay, isn't delay in prayer discouraging? Don't give up on delay in prayer. So they're being persecuted, and they're like, you know what? I've believed, I'm done. He's not coming back. I'm going to go back to my old ways. And let me show you in 10:32 where he talks to them and he says, don't give up. Remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. Sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecution. At other times you stood side by side with those who were so treated. You suffered along with those in prison and joyfully accepted the confiscation of your property because you knew that you yourselves had better and lasting possessions. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. Can you feel this sound of don't go back? I know that you are suffering. And today, guys, watching this video, maybe there's things happening in your life that you're like, I'm done. Hear the author saying to you, don't go back. Don't go back to your old way of life. Keep going. I know you're being persecuted. I know you're suffering, but keep going. You've got this sound of this unwavering confidence. He's saying, go to faith. Now, he systematically breaks down this superiority of Christ, and it's quite fun. As you go through, I want you to circle. I've circled everything that he addresses, and I've put on one side what he says is bad about their old stuff, and on the other side what is good. You can almost do a table. What's bad, what's good. He talks about from the beginning, it says, in the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets. And then he says, but in these last days, he's separating. He's saying there's a past and there's a today. There's a past and there's a today. Don't live in the past. God spoke in the past, but he has moved on. And now there is a fresh new way. So that Jesus is superior over the angels. He talks about firstly the prophets, then the angels. Then he talks about Moses and he says, nah, greater than Moses. Moses was just a messenger of the covenant. Jesus is the founder of the new covenant. And then he talks about Moses was a faithful steward. I get it. He says, but you know what? He was a faithful steward in the house. But you know what? Jesus is in fact the son of the house. This incredible moment. He talks about Jesus as the high priest, the sacrifices. You once did sacrifices over and over again. He is the once and for all. So jump into this book, guys. Jump in, have fun in this book, really relax into this book. But this is meaty. So highlight, study, take your time. You've got 3 parts in this book with us. Take your time and jump into Hebrews.